I'm sitting in a bar I can't afford, nursing a whiskey I don't even want. Staring into the glass, trying to figure out when I became this person. The kind who flinches when someone laughs too loud. The kind who feels sick when it rains. It's been 6 months since graduation. 6 months since I left Hillside Arts College with a ruined thesis, a broken reputation, and a heart that still spells his name in Morse code every time I close my eyes. Julian, even now, just thinking it makes my throat tighten. If you don't subscribe to the channel, I will stop making videos, and you won't be able to watch our stories anymore. So please subscribe now and tell us in the comments how you like our stories. People say you never forget your first love. What they don't tell you is that sometimes your first love is also your first predator, and the two become so tangled inside you that you can't separate pain from affection anymore. Let me take you back. Not to the beginning, because honestly, I don't know when it really started. Maybe it was freshman year, the first day, when he shoved past me in the hallway. I caught the scent of his cologne mixed with something sharp, something that made my stomach twist. Maybe it was every time he cornered me. Every cruel word that felt like he was carving his initials into my ribs. But the story you need to hear begins 8 months ago. Senior year, February, I was failing, not academically. My GPA was fine. But my thesis, the project meant to define my entire college career, was a disaster. I'm a painter. Oil on canvas. And my final project required a human subject. Something raw. Something intimate. The kind of work that strips a person down to their bones and puts their truth on display. The problem? Nobody wanted to sit for me. I was Liam the loser. That was Julian's nickname for me. And it stuck like tar. 3 years of systematic humiliation made sure of that. Portfolios knocked into puddles. Whispered insults that followed me like shadows. The time he slammed me into a locker so hard, I couldn't hear out of my left ear for 2 days. The art kids avoided me because being seen with me meant becoming a target. The popular kids avoided me because, well, I was invisible unless Julian decided I needed reminding of my place. So yeah, I was failing, and I was running out of time. It was a Thursday night in late February. One of those brutal New England storms that turns the sky purple and makes the world feel like it's holding its breath. I was alone in the art studio. 3rd floor of Morrison Hall, the old building smelled like linseed, oil, and forgotten dreams. My studio was my sanctuary, 20-foot ceilings, massive skylights being hammered by rain, heaters clanking in the corners. My easel stood in the back, surrounded by failure, sketches of strangers. Self-portraits that didn't look like me. Abstract pieces screaming, I'm lost. I was cleaning brushes, trying not to think about the 4 weeks I had left, when I heard the door creak. I assumed it was campus security, or Professor Chen checking on me. Then I smelled. It's cedar, rain, something expensive, something that didn't belong there. I turned around, and there he was, Julian. Bane looked like he'd walked out of the storm and decided to become one, drenched. White shirt plastered to his body. Dark hair stuck to his forehead. Water traced down his jaw. He didn't speak. He just stood there, watching me with those sharp gray eyes. The kind that could tear you apart without touching you. I froze, paint thinner on my hands. An old hoodie full of holes. I probably looked exactly like what I was exhausted. Broke and barely holding together. What are you doing here? I asked. My voice sounded small. He stepped inside slowly, like he was testing the space. I heard you're failing, he said. His voice was deeper than usual. Rougher, I laughed, bitter. I'm not failing. I just don't have a model. He looked at my canvases. Because nobody wants to sit for the guy I made radioactive. Should have made me angry. Instead, it just hurt. Why are you here? I snapped. Run out of people to torture? He stopped in front of my easel. Stared at the blank canvas, then he looked at me. Something changed. I'll do it, he said. I blinked. What? I'll sit for you. Every night. As long as you need? I thought I misheard. Why? I asked. He stepped closer. I could feel the cold from his clothes. Smell the rain on his skin. Maybe I'm bored, he said quietly. Maybe I want to see what you see. I see a bully. I shot back. My voice shook. Then paint that, he replied. He reached out and tucked a wet strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers were freezing, but they burned every night. 7 p.m. just you and me? He whispered. No filters. No lies. I should have said no. Every part of me knew this was dangerous, but the artist in me was starving. Fine, I said. He smiled. Beautiful. Terrifying. See you Monday. Liam, then he left. Sudden, electric. I stood there staring at the blank canvas, not knowing I'd just agreed to paint my own destruction. Monday came too fast. All weekend, I convinced myself he wouldn't show, that it was a joke. But at 6:45 I was there. Easel ready. Paint mixed. Heater blasting. Burnt sienna. Raw umber. Crimson. Slate gray. Exactly at 7. Footsteps. The door opened. Julian walked in like he owned the place. Dark jeans. Gray Henley. Hair still damp, he smelled like soap and wood. You came, I said I would. He tossed his jacket aside. Where do you want me? I pointed to the stool under the light. There, and I need you shirtless. For structure, he smirked. I know anatomy. Liam. But he sat down anyway, and that's where everything truly began. He was already unbuttoning the Henley, pulling it over his head in one smooth motion, and just like that, I forgot how to breathe. I'd seen Julian shirtless before at the campus gym. Once on the quad, when he and his friends were playing football, but this was different. This was for me. He stood 3 feet away, all lean muscle and golden skin. A small scar near his ribs I'd never noticed before. His chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm that somehow matched my racing heartbeat. You're staring, he said, not mocking. Just observing. I'm an artist, I managed. It's literally my job, all right, he replied. So get to work. The first session was torture. Not because he was difficult. He wasn't. He sat perfectly still, barely moving except when I asked him to shift. But the silence was overwhelming. I could hear everything. The rain outside, the heater rattling, his breathing, my pulse pounding in my ears. I started with charcoal, rough lines to map out proportions. I tried to be professional, tried to see him as just another subject, just lines and shadows, but my hands kept shaking, because every time I looked up, he was looking back, not at the wall, not into space. At me like he was studying me, the same way I was studying him. Why do you hate me? I asked suddenly. I didn't know why I said it. Maybe the quiet made me reckless. He didn't flinch. Do I? You've spent 3 years making my life miserable, I said. So yeah, I'd say hate is a safe guess. He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, what if I told you it wasn't hate? I looked up sharply. Then what was it? His eyes were dark, unreadable. Curiosity. I stared. You were the only person who ever looked at me like I was disappointing, he continued. Everyone else wanted something from me, or was afraid of me. But you looked at me like I could be better. So you decided to ruin my life? I decided to see how much it would take to break you. His voice was calm, casual. It made my stomach twist. But you never broke, he added. You just got quieter, more guarded. I found that interesting. I didn't know what to say, so I went back to sketching, jaw tight, pretending his words hadn't lodged themselves under my ribs. Wednesday is when things changed. He arrived early. 6:50. I was still setting up when he walked in this time. He didn't wait for instructions. He took off his shirt and sat down like it was routine. You're tense, he said after 20 minutes. I'm fine. Your lines are shaky. You're second-guessing yourself. Before I could respond, he stood up and walked over. Let me see. Julian. You're supposed to. But he was already behind me. Looking over my shoulder, I felt the heat of his skin. Smelled soap and something warmer. More human. You made my eyes wrong, he murmured. They're not wrong, they're soft. He reached around me and closed his hand over mine, firm, controlling. I'm not soft. Liam, my heart slammed against my ribs. I paint what I see, I whispered. Then you're not looking hard enough. He guided my hand back to the canvas. His chest pressed lightly against my back. Together we darkened the shadows, sharpened the gaze. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. I was aware of everything. His hand, his warmth, his slow, steady breathing. There, he said quietly. That's closer. He stepped back, and I felt the absence like physical pain. You can sit again, said, not turning around. After a moment, I heard his voice. I like watching you pretend I don't affect you. I don't. Liar. Asterisk, he told me about his father, about expectations, about being valued only for achievements. I told him about my mom, about losing her, about how painting was the only way I understood the world. It felt dangerous, like trading secrets without knowing the cost. That night, the heater broke by 8:30, my breath fogged in front of me, the cold crept in fast. I'll call maintenance, I muttered. They won't come tonight, Julian said. It's Friday. He was still shirtless. Goosebumps covered his skin. You should go, I said. It's freezing. He didn't move. Instead, he grabbed his Henley and walked over. Here, that's yours. You're shivering, before I could argue. His hands were on my shoulders, turning me toward him. And you're stubborn, he added. You won't leave. He pulled the shirt over my head. It was warm. It smelled like him. Cedar cotton. Something unmistakably Julian. It hung loose on me better. He asked. I nodded. We were close enough to see the flecks of blue and silver in his eyes, close enough to count his heartbeat. Liam, he said softly. My name had never sounded like that before, yeah. If I kissed you right now, would you stop me? My mind froze. I what? Would you? I should have said yes. I should have pushed him away. But I was tired of pretending. No, I whispered. I wouldn't. Something flickered in his eyes. He leaned in slowly. Giving me time to run, I didn't. When his lips met mine. It wasn't gentle. It was 3 years of tension released at once. His hand slid to my neck. My breath broke into a quiet sound I couldn't control. He kissed me again. Deeper, I stumbled back until I hit the wall. I kissed him like I was drowning, like he was air. My paint-stained hands found his chest. Feeling his heartbeat under my palm, he was warm. I was freezing, and somehow neither of us noticed when he finally pulled back. Our foreheads touched. We were both shaking. I've wanted to do that since the first day I saw you, he whispered. You had a strange way of showing it, I replied weakly. He laughed. Real laughter. Yeah, I did. He kissed me again, slower at some point. We ended up on the floor, wrapped in his coat. Tangled together beneath the skylights, city lights shimmered above us. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I won't tell you everything that happened that night. Some things are meant to stay sacred, even in confession. But I will tell you this. I gave him everything. Every wall I'd built. Every secret I'd buried. Every part of me I decided was unlovable. I laid it all out like an offering, and he accepted it with hands that felt careful, with whispered words that sounded like promises. Hours later, when he finally pulled back, his thumb traced my jaw. You're extraordinary, he said. Not like a line, like a fact. I'm really not, I whispered. You are, he insisted. His voice was rough, wrecked, and I'm sorry I ever made you believe otherwise. I wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. Stay, I whispered. Dawn felt impossibly far away, and the thought of being alone after this felt unbearable. I can't, he said quietly. Early practice, but he sounded reluctant. I'll see you Monday, I said. Monday. He kissed my forehead so gentle it made my chest ache. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the cold studio wearing his shirt. Surrounded by unfinished paintings and the ghost of his touch, I fell asleep on the floor around 4 in the morning. Smiling like an idiot, I thought I'd finally won. I thought the war was over, I didn't realize. I was just a victory lap he'd been planning for 3 years. I woke up at 5:47 a.m., gray light filtered through the skylights. My body ached from the hardwood floor. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. Then everything rushed back. The studio, the broken heater, Julian's hands, his voice sounding like forgiveness. I sat up slowly. His Henley was still on me. It smelled like him and paint thinner. His coat was folded beside me. He must have done that before. Leaving the thought tighten my chest, I walked to my easel. The painting was nearly finished, 5 sessions, and somehow I'd captured something I didn't fully understand, not just his body, but something beneath it, something vulnerable and dangerous, like a predator that was also afraid in my head. I'd already named it The Weight of Being Seen. It was the best thing I'd ever made, and it felt like a love letter I wasn't sure was allowed to send. My phone buzzed. Julian, you still wearing my shirt? My heart skipped me. Maybe want it back? Julian, keep it. Looks better on you. See you Monday. I read those words over and over, looking for hidden meaning. For proof that last night was real, there was nothing. Just normal. I smiled like an idiot and went back to work. The weekend vanished in caffeine and paint. I barely left the studio. Professor Chen found me Saturday and threatened to report me to student health if I didn't eat. So I forced down a sandwich and kept painting. I couldn't stop. Every brush stroke felt essential, like proof, like evidence that what we shared mattered. By Sunday night, it was finished. I stood there, exhausted and buzzing. Staring at the canvas, Julian looked back at me, vulnerable, powerful, beautiful in a way that felt dangerous to admit. His eyes held the same intensity I'd known for years, only now I thought I understood it. I covered the painting with a white sheet, like you're supposed to. The senior showcase was Wednesday, 3 days away. Paperwork done. Registration complete. All that was left was transport and waiting. I texted him a photo. Me finished. You'll have to wait until Wednesday, he replied instantly. Julian, can't wait. Proud of you, Liam. 3 words. They felt like forgiveness. Monday's session never happened. At 6:30, while I was setting up, he texted, mandatory team, meeting emergency. He promised to make it up too. Me, I told myself it was fine, that he had a life, that one missed session meant nothing. But the studio felt wrong without him, too quiet too. Empty. I went back to my dorm early, showered for the first time in days, fell asleep wearing his shirt like armor. Tuesday, he texted again. He was sick. Nothing serious. Just resting before the showcase. He promised he'd be there. Wednesday, Julian, you're going to kill it. Liam, everyone's going to see what I see. I reread that message until my eyes blurred. I fell asleep holding my phone. Wednesday morning, I woke with a knot in my stomach. Anxiety. I told myself the showcase was a big deal. Local, gallery owners, alumni, collectors, mentors. This was my chance. Everything I'd worked for, and somewhere deep down, I was still waiting for him. This was my chance to prove I was more than Liam the loser, than the guy who'd been humiliated for 3 years. I arrived at the Morrison Gallery at noon. It was beautiful, high ceilings, white walls, sunlight pouring through industrial windows. My piece stood in the back corner, still covered, waiting. Other students were setting up. I recognized a few. Sarah, Chen, with her massive multimedia installation. Marcus Webb, with his photography series. They nodded politely. Distant, the label Julian had burned onto me was still there. Even after everything, by 2 o'clock, the gallery was full, Faculty, students, strangers in expensive coats. It looked like they actually understood art. I stood near my piece, hands trembling, wearing my only decent button-down. Clean jeans. No paint stains. I scanned the crowd. No Julian. My phone buzzed. Julian, running late. Start without me. I'll be there soon. The knot in my stomach tightened. At 2:15. Professor Chen stepped up to the microphone. Welcome to Hillside Arts College's Senior Showcase, she said warmly. We are incredibly proud of this class. Your work reflects courage, honesty, and emotional depth. She introduced each piece, Sarah. Marcus then, and finally, Liam Parker's oil portrait, The Weight of Being Seen. She smiled at me. Liam, would you like to say a few words? My throat went dry. I stepped forward. For a second, I was 18 again, standing in a hallway. Hearing laughter, someone whispering, loser? But then I thought about the painting, about what it meant, about turning something painful into something meaningful. This piece began. My voice, steadier than I felt, is about transformation, about how being CN, truly CN, can change a person. It's personal. And I hope it shows that sometimes the people who hurt us also help us understand ourselves. Hey. Professor Chen nodded. Beautiful. Let's take a look. I reached for the sheet, my heart slammed. Wait. The voice cut through the room. The crowd parted. Julian walked in like he owned the place. Varsity jacket. Teammates beside him, campus royalty. But something was different. The warmth was gone. He looked cold. Distant, performative art, he said loudly, is about truth, right? About showing what's real, even when it's uncomfortable. He grabbed the sheet. So let's show them the truth. He pulled it away. The crowd gasped, and my world collapsed. The painting was still there, but it had been ruined. Not destroyed, defaced. Julian's face was covered in thick black marker. Cruel. Words, slurs, things I can't repeat. Pinned to the canvas were photographs, high-dash quality, professional photos of me in the studio. Looking at him, reaching for him, sleeping on his coat, vulnerable, exposed, trusting in every photo. Julian wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the camera, bored, amused, like this was all an experiment. At the bottom was a printed card in bold red letters. The Art of the Con, a 3-year study in manipulation by Julian Bain Smaller. Text underneath, how to break a person using their own vulnerability. Special thanks to Liam Parker. The gallery went silent. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. Everyone was staring. Shock, disgust, pity. Julian turned to me. No smile, just triumph. He leaned in. Close. You really thought I'd choose you? He whispered. You thought any of it was real? Why? I asked. My voice broke. 3 years, he replied softly. I planned this for 3 years. The bullying was the setup. I needed you isolated, desperate, easy. The sessions were the experiment, he continued. And Friday, that was the finale. He laughed quietly. I needed you completely open, so I could record what it looks like when someone breaks. Why? I whispered, because I could. Then he straightened and addressed the crowd. I had Liam's consent to photograph our sessions. This was a collaboration. He's just upset about the presentation. He shrugged. Art can be uncomfortable. People nodded. I watched the story change in real time. Julian, the brave innovator. Liam, the unstable kid. Professor. Chen tried to intervene. I couldn't hear her. All I saw were the photos, my face, so hopeful. So foolish. He'd never been looking at me. Not once. I turned and walked out. Didn't run. Didn't cry, just walked, like a ghost. Behind me, I heard laughter. Wow. He really fell for it. I made it to the bathroom before I got sick. That was 6 months ago. I left Hillside the next day. Didn't withdraw. Didn't pack. Just drove. I never finished my degree. The piece was quietly removed. The school buried the incident. Julian graduated with honors, got accepted into a prestigious program. I saw it online, then I blocked him everywhere. I'm okay now. Relatively, I work at a small art supply store in Portland. I don't paint anymore. I can't. Every canvas becomes his face. Every brushstroke becomes his voice. You're extraordinary. Well, he was documenting my collapse. But here's what haunts me. I still miss him, not who he really was. I don't know if that person existed. I miss who I thought he was, the boy who touched me gently, who kissed me like I mattered. I miss that ghost. Sometimes I smell cedar on a stranger in panic. Sometimes it rains and I remember that first night. Sometimes I wake at 3 a.m. reaching for no one. They say, your first love teaches you something. Mine taught me I can confuse cruelty for care, obsession for intimacy, control for affection. My first love was my predator. And the worst part, the part I never admit. If he showed up right now, if he told me it was real, I think I'd believe him. I think I'd let him hurt me again, just to feel chosen. For a moment, he didn't just break my heart, he broke my trust in myself. He taught me to crave the hand that wounds me. I never thought I'd fall for my bully, but I did. And 6 months later, I'm still sitting in bars I can't afford, drinking things I don't want, searching faces in crowds, hoping for a different ending. There isn't one. This is it. No closure. No revenge. No miracle, just me, haunted by someone who was never real. My first love, my tormentor, my masterpiece of ashes.